And welcome back to Survivor 42 and 42. Just finished Winners at War. It is 12:35. All right, so I'm still doing good time to finish on Sunday. We are joined by Ian, another member of Dynamic Character Productions on YouTube. We've had 4 or 5 people from there so far, so another in a long line of illustrious guests. Ian, what is your all-time Survivor hot take?
All right, you asked me this a couple minutes ago. I do have a few, but one that I think is something that like no one would ever think of or feel unless I say it first is that Survivor Fiji is the best season to like have someone who's new to Survivor watch. I think it has like I don't know. I feel like it has enough like mean spirited people to where like it would be funny to a new viewer. And also, there's like the immunity idol is finally a real immunity idol. It has a great winner.
Great winner.
Yeah, I mean, just people to follow. Like, you want to root for Yowman, you want to root for Earl, you want to root against a lot of people. So yeah, that's my.
Well, so Gia Worthy, who we had for the Fiji episode, she also podcasts for RHAP. She loves Fiji, and she would agree with you on that. As far as she thinks that Fiji is heavily underrated and is a season that she recommends to a lot of folks, and I do agree. I feel like old school, new school, you can watch this one and understand the game no matter what. You understand that there are advantages. You understand that there are storylines that the show wants you to feel a certain way for. You know, the car reward comes to mind. And speaking of Fiji, we don't get the winner of Survivor Fiji on this season, which I understand there was real life stuff happening with Earl's life, and I would have loved to see him. But we go into Winners at War. And this is my 5th time watching this season. Watching it this time after 39 days of watching all these people's previous seasons, I still felt the nostalgia factor that, I felt 20 years after the season 1. So when Winners at War was announced and right before it started to come out, how were you feeling about it? Who were some of the people that you were hoping to see? And were there any surprises when it was finally announced?
I mean, I was super pumped for Winners of War. I did not watch IOI live, which, like, that's probably a saving grace.
Well.
So yeah, coming off watching Edge live, I was really pumped because it was a lot of people that we hadn't seen in a while. Well, probably half of them that we hadn't seen in quite some time. It was going to be interesting to see. I mean, you knew they were going to get some old school people. We were going to see how they worked with the new phase of the game, which we saw in the show not play out super well. And then, yeah, the casting, you mentioned it already, like Earl is my favorite player. He was him, Todd, Tina, and I would have been fine with like V or Chris, but like those first 4 were people that I really wanted to see. Didn't get any of them. I mean, we knew that like Rob and Parvati, like in order to have Winners at War, they had to lock those people in before.
Yes.
Even yeah.
I mean, you need Rob, Parvati, Tyson. You need Tony,
Sandra,
and who?
And Sandra.
And Sandra. Yeah, I feel like those are the 5 that you absolutely need, and then you can just build the cast around them. And I do agree. There were some people that weren't there that I was annoyed with. And then in my head, I've like fan fictioned how every other winner would have done on this season. Like, I feel like Fabio would have gone by Judd at this point in his life. And I feel like V wouldn't have semi-quit like Ben did. But for me, it was Tina, Earl, V, and Chris Doherty. Because I do feel like Chris Doherty is one of these winners that has gotten buried throughout history because of how production felt about him at that point. But I think that Chris would have done well. And I think that a lot of those winners would have done well on it. But that's why we play the game. Maybe they all get voted out first. Were there any people here that you were particularly surprised to see?
I was surprised to see every winner from 35 to 37. I feel like, again, we could have cut those 3 out and just still had a really good season. I think you have to keep Sarah, because just the lack of
because women.
women winners that we've had in general. And I mean, Sarah is like a winner of an all-star season. You kind of want her back anyway, or an all-star season. So yeah, I did not want to see Ben, did not want to see Nick. I was fine with Wendell. But yeah, Nick and Ben are not two of my most favorite players.
And it's funny, and I'm going to go on a side note right quick. It's funny that, and I'm going back to the HHH pod that we did, where people say, you know, HHH was rigged for Ben to win and, you know, all this bullshit. Then you watch this season, and he's getting the goofball edit for the most part, and he's being portrayed as a moron. And I'm like, well, why would they fix it for this guy to win if they're just going to come right back and make this guy look like a fool? But that's just for anyone out there that's still saying HHH was rigged for Ben to win. Thoughts on the Edge being brought back this season? You said that the last season you had watched before this was Edge of Extinction. So what were your thoughts on that twist being brought back this time around?
I was only okay with it because like we already knew who we were getting. And if we saw them on the edge, which I still think we got too much of in this season, like we were going to get some kind of like bookend. I don't think that like Natalie or Amber specifically coming in, getting voted out second for basically no fault of her own. That's like a terrible bookend to Amber's Survivor career. I mean, like it or not, she's a great player. And so like to get her bookend is like the final battle back challenge where she has that like great speech standing there with Rob, and Rob has a great speech as well. That's what I wanted, like these people to end their Survivor career with, not like a vote out at day 5 or day 6 and that's it.
Then we never see them again.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'll jump ahead a little bit. When they are having those speeches at the end after the second battle back, it did kind of, not in a way that other things this season hit me, but it hit me as far as if Survivor had ended this season, I feel like that would have been a great bookend, just period, on the story. And so watching 41 and 42 over the next couple of days, I feel it's going to be basically an epilogue to this journey. I felt like I was done today. I feel like I'm done today. And just seeing a lot of these characters that I've been watching not only for 22 years, but 39 days of, it was nice to see Danny back for a bit. I wasn't really clamoring for a Danny return, but it was fun to see her come back and not do too hot. I do agree that Amber, I thought she was a solid player in All Stars. So it was cool to see her back. I would have replaced her with someone else, but I enjoyed her. But I do feel like this was the perfect ending to, I would say, 16 of the 20 people that are on this. Like, I feel like 3 or 4 of these people might come back again. Yeah. But I feel like this is the end of the story, especially for the old school players. I can't see any of them coming back, as Tyson might win the challenge right now, and then he'll come back again. Yeah. Fire tokens, on the other hand, did you? Okay, so if you want to go into more detail about you shaking your head, it's fire tokens.
It's such an interesting concept, and I just think it was a bad call to introduce it on this season. I get what they were trying to do. They were trying to add another layer to a game that everyone had clearly mastered, at least for their own 39 days that they won. So I understand it. I just think it was just weird. And of course, the Edge played into it. A lot of stuff happened with the fire tokens. Yes, we got Tony's extortion, which is an all-time episode, an all-time moment. But other than that, it's just, you're getting bequeathed tokens, and it's we go through basically 5-6 episodes of there's no point of the tokens, and then all of a sudden it's oh, here's a battle back, I need to use my tokens, or I need tokens, and it's it's just weird. And
Nick has a confessional where he says, I feel like these tokens are going to be a big deal by the end of it, and it's well, The problem is, it's a big deal for the people on the edge. It really means nothing to
players.
players for the most part. I wasn't a big fan of the fire tokens. I understood their purpose, but I do feel like it would have been a lot better utilized either post 40 or just use it in 38, realize it doesn't work, and just bring back the edge for 40. And we got neither. But I think that more than likely we would get an edge back before we got fire tokens back. Please, let's hope. This, as the game progresses, this early storyline of old school, new school starts to get out in the ether, along with just all these prior relationships. And what I really appreciated about this season is they didn't try to hide the fact that these people were interacting before the season, that they know that they're all going to be playing with each other, with the exception of Sandra and Rob, which was weird. They didn't try to bury it like they did in Heroes versus Villains, All Stars, and all the rest. So what did you think of these prior relationships being so heavily focused this time around as compared to previous seasons?
Yeah, I think it was going to be impossible to avoid. There's probably, I don't know when it is, but there's probably some point in the season that the editors were like, okay, we have to, like, it's going to be impossible. So to not talk about it or not display it because of the poker alliance, like, it's brought up so often that they're going to have to talk about the past relationships that these players have. It sucks because it like forced hands in the game, and it changed the game, and like it's not a pure season where these people don't know each other and they show up and they're getting to know one another. They already know each other. They've seen each other play. So yeah, I mean, it's hard to avoid them, and it's crazy that they avoided them so much in the past All Stars and Heroes vs. Villains. But I don't think it was focused on too heavily. The Poker Alliance is probably the only thing that's brought up too much. And it's weird that like the Poker Alliance has
get a chance to work together. They all get voted out before they can get together. So it never becomes a thing.
And individual relationships such as Tony and Sarah just slide by throughout the whole, like no one says anything about that. And that's like one of the more well-known relationships.
Yeah, well, I think the Kim episode is finally where the Kim boot episode is finally where someone's like, we need to break up Tony and Sarah. It's like, yeah, you should have realized that OG tribes many weeks ago, and the fact that they're not, but it's clear that the two of them are working together it's wild to me. And as I was watching it this time, I started thinking back to All Stars, and I do feel like All Stars might be looked at, I won't say higher or lower, but differently if they were able to show that these people know each other. Because All Stars is all about, oh, I wonder who's going to be here. I don't know. Like, they try to claim that they don't know each other, for the most part. But as we all know, the reason everyone was so pissed off in All Stars is because they were friends in real life. They thought they were going out to be playing Survivor with their friends. And Rob and Amber realize, hey, we're out here trying to play $1 million against our friends, and we're going to do it this way. And that's why so many of those people felt burned. This time around, it doesn't really feel like the jury or anyone in particular is overly upset at a outside of the game relationship being taken advantage of or what have you. Maybe because Tony and Sarah basically go to the end together. This old school, new school thing. Did you buy into it? I know the optics say that there was, but do you feel like these votes that were happening were old school, new school based? I hate saying that back to back. Or do you think it was just the way the game was just going?
I don't think we see it in the episodes like enough to say that it was going on, that's what the votes were. But I mean, just look at the boot order. It's just old school, old school, old school. And I know there was more new school players to begin with, so they already have sort of a majority regardless. But yeah, I don't think that you can deny it when the boot order was what it was. I mean, it's just the whole pre-merge is old
everyone plus Natalie. It's
Very,
all
yeah,
old school plus
fantastic.
Natalie.
Yeah.
And every time I watch this season, I try to find points where it's like, okay, it can't be old school, new school. It's just the way the chips fell. But you know, we have Danny basically outing the old school alliance, and that's one of my favorite scenes from this season is Ethan just going, you know, he's not old school, right? Um, I try to find these moments where it's like, okay, it can't be like they're not really going to go with something as arbitrary as old school, new school. This time around, I will say it did definitely seem like the old school players were getting taken out first. Like, you know, when the swap happens and, you know, it's Michelle and Parvati. Parvati's the first one to go. If And then Yule, all of a sudden Yule's gone instead of Michelle, even though she's on the bottom. I do feel like there was this storyline, and it sucks because I do feel like if even one or two of them, not named Tyson, Tyson won a new school season, so I guess we will count him as new school. Not named Tyson are playing at the merge. Not to say we would have gotten a different outcome because I do feel like Tony probably wins most of the time, but I feel like it would have been a more interesting season because spoilers, I did not like the last two-ish episodes of this season this time around, mainly because I'm not a big fan of most of that majority alliance at the end of the game. But we'll get to that. The Ethan vote out, I wrote in my notes, the Ethan vote out was very Michaela-ish and game as far as it just kind of came out of nowhere. So if you're if you have any thoughts on the Ethan vote, we can touch on it, but we can move on. Why did Ethan get voted out?
Yeah, it's like, well, I think part of the reason that the old school, new school thing, and again, I think that's just basically it. I mean, it is a weird episode because you don't get much like Ethan's going home or like, hey, we should target Ethan. It's just kind of like you show up to tribal and that's what we get is an Ethan boot. But like the people who are brought back new school, you know, they haven't had the time to be considered like a legend of the game. But even like someone who hasn't played again, like Yule, is basically considered a legend. I mean, people consider Yule one of the top players. So like Sandra, the people you brought back from old school are legends. Sandra, Rob, Parvati, I mean Amber, even.
Danny
Uh,
vote.
yeah, not Danny, but like you could slide Kim in there. You could slide Kim in there as well. Like those people are legends, whereas like Michelle and Wendell and Adam, they haven't had enough. There hasn't been enough time for the community or to really analyze like their gameplay. So
I would say the last legend of the new school, I would say, would probably be Tony, right? Yeah.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Certain players' portrayals this season. I already talked briefly about Ben's as compared to his first time. He comes off as a fool this time around. Adam comes off like Adam turned up to 11 since Millennials vs. Gen X, where he's just overly chaotic for chaotic sake most of the time. Nick gets a weird edit this season where the what did you say that the internet called him? Something like Donathan Vampire or something like that, or Creepy Donathan Vampire, something like that. But you know, they have all the scenes where they not edit him, but they show him creeping in on conversations. Wendell gets the villain edit this season. So how did you feel about certain players as they were portrayed this season as compared to seasons past?
Let's see. I'll try and pinpoint a couple people. Denise early on, she has a weird edit too. She gets she has like a winner's edit for like up until the Sandra move. It's like, oh shit, like Denise is like really, really playing. And then all of a sudden she just disappears completely. Like you just forget she's even there.
And she wins a few immunities, which is wild because
it's not, she's not portrayed. I mean, it's impossible to portray Denise any differently than she is, than we've been shown. Nick, yeah, you're right. Nick is a weird one. I mean, I hate Nick. So like, I don't care that he's like portrayed as a kind of a, like you said, he's kind of like, I mean, he's not a creep, but he like is portrayed like one. I mean, just like always showing up. Yeah, he's just always there. He kind of seems stupid. Like Tony is like, going hard with him at the 4-3-2 vote. Like, and Tony's plan makes complete sense. Like, obviously to us to us at home, and
Yeah.
Nick is, uh, yeah.
Yeah.
Jeremy
So,
is another one that's like he's portrayed not so heroic this season, as like he's kind of portrayed as like a whiny. I don't know. I didn't like Jeremy on this season, or at least the person that we got on confessionals and stuff. I mean, voting out Natalie, like, why are you trying to pull up a huge vengeance to get back? Like, that's not going to help. That's why she was voted out, because you were like so close. I mean,
Natalie did that in her season, and what I agree with you. I'm just the parallels were there.
right, and it's like it's almost like a blood versus water for some of these pairs. It's like him and Natalie are so close that like once Natalie is voted out, first of all, you should be thankful that Natalie's voted out instead of you. Um, because in my opinion, Jeremy's a better player. In most facets of the game, I would say that Jeremy's a better player. Be grateful. I mean, it's like blood versus water. Your ally goes, there's like, you're just a free agent now. You're a freebie to work with for anybody. You pick who you want. So yeah, Jeremy's the one. Go ahead.
No. You keep on going. I have something to say about Jeremy once you're done.
Sophie is another one that's like super interesting.
Sophie was winning the entire time. I thought she had the winners at it.
Well, and I thought so too for a little bit, just because in her actual winning game, we got like nothing from her. So, and I'm glad they showed a lot of her because she played really well. I mean, she finished technically 10th, but 9th. Yeah, it's interesting to see like how they chose to edit certain people, because we didn't get a huge edit from like the bigger players. Like, I don't think we got a huge edit from Sandra or from Parv, who's never really gotten a huge edit. Even Rob, to some extent, like didn't get. I mean, he had his fair share when he was there, but yeah, Rob didn't get a ton.
Yeah,
Ben had 70 confessionals in his winning season with a bunch of good characters, and he didn't have much in this season. Not that there was much, but
yeah, he's. I won't say Tony's lackey, but he's almost like he's Tony's Trish this season. But like Trish was better than Ben. And the reason I say that is because Tony goes against what he tells Ben, I think twice in a row at the merge. And both times he like pats Ben on the back and says, "Hey, don't worry, we'll get Jeremy next time." And Ben throwing his hissy fit because he wants Jeremy gone. So going to Jeremy right quick, I do feel like they were trying to they needed a villain to go against Tony. And so they painted Jeremy in that light. I didn't feel like he was getting an overly negative edit, but I do feel like he was being portrayed as the Tony villain in the Tony story. And it's wild because when he plays the safety without power and they get back to camp, the only people pissed off at him are the ones that were trying to vote him out. His alliance was not annoyed with him at all, and it's Ben being a fucking jamoke for most of it, just like now we got to do something different. And Jeremy's trying to strategize the next morning. He's like, I really don't want to talk to you. Why are these people so gung-ho about getting Jeremy out for what seems like forever? But what about Jeremy in this season made it that Ben, specifically Ben, needed him out of the game?
I think he's just a likable enough guy that if he gets to the end, he's going to win every time. I think that the way he connects emotionally with people. He is good at the game. I think that he does very well at forming a connection on the island. I mean, I don't think we've ever had somebody. I mean, even Ben was never like Jeremy's a bad person. Jeremy always has a good umbrella. So I think letting someone like that get to the end is bad, but it is always interesting to see like the seasons where a group targets one person and then they target them again and then they do it again, and it's just I mean, I understand wanting to, because if you just let that person go, then that's like a pitch for them at the end. But yeah, I don't know, like, from Ben's point of view, I don't know what the craziness was about getting Jeremy out.
I
But
have I have thoughts.
okay, well, I
I'm
would
here.
love.
No, everyone knows what I'm alluding to, but that's
Oh, got it.
I
I
don't.
think I
Yeah.
think I know what you're putting down.
um, Sandra gets idled out. Sandra doesn't want to stay on the edge. Sandra leaves. I asked this during Edge of Extinction. I'll ask it now. Is leaving the edge quitting in your eyes?
It's not so black and white. Like, I really wish it was. For the 3 people that have quit the edge, I don't consider it a quit, because I just don't see, especially in Sandra's case, I just don't see a chance that she would win. She's never won a challenge, so she's not going to win one against Rob and Tyson and Parvati and people who have, 5+ immunity wins in their time. And also the physical stuff that's just there, like the running for the coconuts, or um, imagine Sandra running across that like rock waterfall that Rob fell on. Like, you'd have to have a life flight right above, just on call, just for when she. I mean, there's just no way she would have been able to complete. I mean, I respect her leaving
Yeah.
rather than. I don't know. I just don't think we would have gotten much. I feel like, respect her for just saying this isn't going to affect, and she didn't care. I don't think that would affect her public perception that
Yeah.
of, some. I don't know. I don't even know if casuals would call her like a quitter, but I mean, if she could have come back in the game, we both know that she would have done everything she could. But she's also not an idiot, so she wasn't going to stay out there and starve.
Yeah, I think, and I said this with Edge of Extinction, I feel like once you've fulfilled your obligation, once you have been voted out, yes, they in that season they gave you the option, and this season they didn't really give you the option. I do feel like Sandra probably would take the option of just bouncing, because she did. But I agree with you. She knows she's not going to win these challenges. She knows that she's probably just going to sit on this island for the next however many days and starve for no real good reason. I don't see it as quitting, because on the other side of that, if you say that someone is, this is not really my opinion or anything, it's just how people talk. If you say that Keith and Wendy quit Edge of Extinction, they quit the game, and then also say, well, Chris never had to play the game in Edge of Extinction. Well, it's like, no, because you're still, by you saying that Keith and Wendy are quitting the game, you're implying that they are still in the game, which means that when Chris wins the season, he won the game because he played the game. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, you have to have one or the other. You can't have both,
Yes.
because they don't make any sense. Yeah. That makes sense.
But all of that is to say, I don't think that Sandra quit. I think Sandra left right when she needed to, because they were ready to merge soon. And what happens when Sandra makes the merge. Rob, on the other hand, is up to his old tricks again. And watching this the first time, I'm like, there's no fucking way that they're going to just let this happen again. And that entire, it's like almost like a mini bottle episode once they lose that challenge, where they're just sitting there. I'm like, they're actually going to do this. And thankfully, he gets caught with his pants down. He goes. Do you think that was Rob's biggest misstep? Not, I won't say across all 5 of his seasons, because I do feel like Marquesas probably is the worst misstep.
Yeah.
But would you put that up there as far as like, what the hell is this guy doing?
Well, in All Stars, to be honest, I don't really know if he has any missteps. I think the only way he gets to the end is doing what he did, and he lost by 1 vote. You just got to live with it. Redemption Island, I mean, no misstep, really. And then Heroes versus Villains, he's voted out for Tyson being an idiot. So, I mean, basically, I don't think he has. I think he gets a lot of hate for that season. I mean, he gets a lot of love for some stuff too that shouldn't be loved for, or is highly praised for. I don't know. Like, it is his biggest misstep, because to be honest, there really aren't others, too many in the other 3 seasons, but I just don't know what else he could have done. Like, I just think there was no chance he was gonna win this season. Um, it's just I wish he would have tried something else. I just don't think that he had a shot once they lost that challenge, and I was really bummed that they did lose because I would have loved to see him make it to merge because you can just see how good him and Parvati are in that first round with the Natalie vote. I mean,
Yeah.
they know that it should be them, and they're just laughing that it's not, and it's like,
Which is wild.
yeah, and I mean, it sucks. I love Boston. I love watching him play. I know it's a very one trick pony, and it's kind of bullying or somewhere around that that line, but it it's so interesting, and I think playing orgs really helps you kind of see how hard it is to control people all the time. And he did that for 39 days, one season. He manipulated everybody in another season, and then just came up short due to social bonds. But yeah, I think it is his biggest misstep. But at the same time, I couldn't really blame him for trying.
Yeah.
But
I will say that one of my favorite Rob moments this season, or actually no, he has a lot. I feel like Rob's one of those players that, at least especially this season, they don't overstay their welcome. We get all the greatest hits and then they go. One was when him, Jeremy, and Ben are walking on the beach, and Ben's like, I've already heard your name," and Rob's like, "You're gonna tell me?" And Ben's like, "Oh, I had to tell him." It's like, no, you didn't. Two, when he confronts Danny about it, and Danny immediately tells him the truth, and he's like, "Now I know I can trust you." And three is when he goes up to Michelle and Jeremy, and he says, "Don't tell me that plan. I already know that plan. That's not going to happen. This is what we're going to do." There are a lot of those moments with him, Parvati, Sandra, especially this season, where it's like, yes, we are getting what we need out of them. Yes, it would be great to have them continue, but I've seen what I need to see out of them. Are they going to play that much differently once the merge hits, or is it going to be, the same thing that we have gotten so many times before? Whether we like it or not, I did want to see these people play differently at the merge, and I do feel like Tony played differently. I do feel like Sarah did play differently. For worse, I guess. I feel like Ben played differently. So I don't feel like a lot of these, I guess, old school players would have changed up a lot of what got them to the dance once that merge hit. In my notes, I just have Ben sucks. I'm assuming.
Yeah, he does.
Oh yeah, Ben sucks because of the Jeremy thing. I could delete that. Adam looking for the idol at Tribal Council. It's very memeable. The first time you watch this season, are you buying? Because they set it up really well.
Yes, they did.
And for a moment, you think, as they go into Tribal, wow, this might actually be it. In your head, was that going to be an idol?
No, but I really wanted it to be. I was like, I remember I'm sitting in the same spot I was when I watched it the first time. Like, dude, I wanted that to be an idol so badly because, again, that would have been something new and cool to have in the game versus that would have been an adaptation of something that all the players have played with, except for, I guess, Amber and Danny for the most part, and Yule because they played with the Super Idol. So it would have been so cool to have that because that's never been done on US Survivor. I think South Africa had that before. But yeah, when he did that, and even Jeff sets it up really well too. Like, Jeff had to have known from Fraud that was coming, that was going to be a thing to come at Tribal. I think that's like one of Jeff's brightest moments on this season.
What makes you think it's not? And Adam's like,
yeah, he's like,
I never played that.
Yeah, and Jeff's like, that's not it. But yeah, I really wanted it to be because everyone would have been shocked. There would have been no true, he was the only one thinking that. Adam was the only one there thinking.
As chaotic as Adam was this season, and I think I do prefer Adam 1.0 over 2.0, I did enjoy him interacting with a lot of these players, and him trying to not lay down the law to Rob, but like it's got to go this way, blah blah blah. And Rob's just sitting there like, okay, yeah, I mean, if you have the numbers, blah blah blah. But once again, Adam's another one of these players that when he goes, it's like, all right, cool, Adam's gone. He hasn't overstayed his welcome. He can go. And I know I keep saying that about a lot of players, and then on the other hand, will say I didn't like the last like final 6-ish people. But it's true, and I want to get to that in a little bit. This is Cops R Us the third. What is your opinion on that alliance, like that entire storyline, but especially, going back to bookends? Do you feel like this was the perfect ending from where we started in Cagayan to here? And what do you think of that alliance just in general?
I mean, I'm just not a big Sarah fan to begin with. Like, even more so after watching this current season of the challenge, she is unbearable. But in terms of Survivor, I do like watching Sarah. While I don't agree with like much that she stands for as a person, I think she is a great player. I don't think she overextends her thoughts and beliefs onto her confessionals and everything. So I don't mind watching her. The alliance, from Cagayan to Game Changers, which really, I mean, it's not much on there to begin with, to the she gets the Tony helps her with the dirt and stuff to have the nighttime mission. That's a great moment for them, and it couldn't have ended better. I mean, I genuinely think this is what happened is a better ending than if they tied in Final Tribal 8-8 and Michelle had to revote, or whoever had to revote. I think that this was a better ending because they beat one another on their own accord and someone else didn't choose for them. I mean, that fire is probably the best fire until Survivor 41, in my opinion. That's the best fire making challenge that we'll probably ever have. But yeah, I love Tony and I love watching Sarah, but I'm not a huge fan of they don't like mix very well. Their conversations are funny, but they're not super intriguing. Like, I would rather watch Yul and Sophie talk and talk game versus Tony and Sarah. I mean, we've seen that before. So like to have it over and over again in the season, it's kind of redundant. But alas, we got it all season because no one wanted to split them up.
No one wanted to split them up until Kim. And that player making challenge, I will say, the first time I watched this season, is there an echo? There is an echo.
Oh.
You don't hear that?
No.
The first time I watched this season, when they lose, or when Sarah loses the fire making challenge and they hug and they cry and all that, I did really feel for Tony in that moment because you can tell he really wanted to go to the end with her. Every other time I've watched it, it's like, okay, yeah. It sucks that your friend is leaving, but you'll see her tomorrow. It's not a big deal. And that's mainly because I've just kind of started, like you, I've slowly started to really turn on Sarah throughout the years of watching the show, and especially doing it like this. It's like, wow, I'm not a fan of her. And I've been trying to follow the challenge while I've been watching this. I'm just going to watch all of it once I'm done with this on Sunday. But from what I've heard, like you said, Sarah's just become super unbearable and kind of annoying on this season. So it seems like everyone is just Camp Tyson, which everyone should be. I've talked about briefly earlier, I felt like Sophie was getting the winner edit. The issue is once Sophie gets eliminated, it's like, well, Tony's winning. It becomes, I won't say it becomes the Tony show, but it becomes more and more apparent that he's in the numbers. Ben, Sarah, and probably Nick are not coming after him at all. They have all the power. They're going to try to get rid of Jeremy, Michelle, Denise, and Kim, which they do, not on their own. Um, do you feel like the way the show was edited, even knowing that the winner is going to be who the winner is, do you feel like it's even, or do you feel like it's the Tony show?
Um, I just think I was like um playing devil's advocate when the season was on. Like I just think I kept sitting there being like, okay, Tony's not gonna win. Like I just didn't want myself to believe that, because if it didn't happen, I was gonna be pissed. So I don't it is the Tony show more than it is anybody else's show, but I do feel like it's still edited fairly well. I mean, better than some seasons. Um, yeah, I mean, there are some people, like we said, you don't really see too much, which is fine.
Which is
Um,
fine, yeah.
because of who they are. I mean, in general, just on the show, they weren't like really contributing too much. Um, I always thought that there was a chance that Kim or Tyson or Rob could win the final battle back and then persuade people to vote Tony out. Um, but once Natalie won, I mean, I was pretty convinced that Tony was going to win after Natalie won. I really did not want Natalie to win because I just didn't want Chris to win the first time around. Uh, but Fishback did say something on the Survivor Know-It-Alls after the finale of Winners at War that Chris Underwood had to win Edge of Extinction for Tony to win Winners at War. And I do feel like, while I don't know that that's 100% true because of who the jury was, I do feel like Chris winning really pissed some of those people off, and they were never going to vote for who came back from the Edge, which sucks because that's the way the game was set up, that someone was going to come back.
Yeah.
They realistically had no chance unless they voted Tony out, which I think Natalie could have won if that was the case. So
she kept trying to, like, she was trying to rally the troops. It's just that everyone except for Michelle was stuck up Tony's ass to the point where, and you have Sarah sitting there saying, Natalie's saying all this, which means I have to make my own moves now. And it's like, well, your move should be to get rid of the person that Natalie is saying the jury are going to vote for if you don't do something about it. I want to briefly just touch on the family visit. It is my all-time favorite family visit. I cry every single time. Seeing Tony with this family, for the first time, really. All the edgers getting it. I know a lot of people don't really like this episode in the season because they spend 2 segments focused on the family visit, but I feel like we need that in this season because they are trying to humanize a lot of these characters, and I think the best way to do that is to show them all with their families. So I really enjoyed that. But anyway, we skip ahead and we have that final battle back, which if Natalie loses, it's the ultimate choke job because she's got everything stacked in her way, and she still almost blows it to Wendell, I'm pretty sure. But Natalie's back. Natalie immediately goes to work. Hey, everyone, Tony is in charge. Tony's going to win. Sarah gets pissed off. We get to that tribal council. And this is watching it this time, this is another reason for me to turn on Sarah because 12 days ago, I'm watching Kagayan, and she's getting pissed off at Cass for doing all these things. And, she's sitting at Ponderosa saying that Cass does all this shit. And then all of a sudden, she's talking about the same gender bias that Cass was talking about in Kagayan, but it comes off as fake this time. To me, it comes off as super fake. Like, I feel like this is her trying to appeal to the jury in the event that her, Tony, and somebody else was sitting at the end, where it's like, hey, if you don't vote for me, you're biased against women. When in reality, you probably don't even buy into that yourself, Lucina. What did you think of that tribal council, that final 6 tribal council? And how did you feel about what Sarah was saying, and do you feel she was being genuine?
I think that it probably started out as something genuine, but I think as something that is ingenuine in reality, it always comes back to that. I think, you can sort of push your agenda in the way you want for some time, but then eventually it's just going to catch up to you and start to look bad if you're coming from a bad place with it. So it's an interesting tribal, one of the more interesting ones we have in the season. But Sarah's biggest issue is and always will be her own hubris. It's why she thinks she can beat Tony at the end, and it's why she continues to work with them, and it's why Tony keeping her as an ally as long as he does, even though she is a threat to win, is brilliant. Um, this is the tribal where Ben quits or Denise
No,
goes.
This is where Denise goes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see Denise go here too, because like we're not seeing much from Denise. So, when someone comes back into the game, it feels like the game should shake up, and it just doesn't.
Yeah, status quo just continues.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It almost came off the same way it does whenever Jeff tries to. Recent Jeff has tried to do things that it definitely seems like he's pandering. Yeah. That's what it felt like with her, where it's like, okay, this can't be real. There's no way that you're saying it. If it had come from Michelle or someone else, like I would have sat there and been like, yeah, I mean, I already believe there's a gender bias, but I would have agreed more than when it was Sarah. And it's like, all right, what are you really doing here? Couple more things. One, this is just kind of a funny question. What is a week?
Yeah, this is the calendar, right? The fake calendar that Tony makes. Yeah, what does he say the week is?
So they have 9 days left, and Jeremy's like, we have about a week left, and Tony goes 2 weeks, and he's like, no, a week is 14 days, and Tony's like, well, you only work 5 days a week, and Tony's like, well, I'm not at work here. This is all a game. And that's why I'm doing better than you because of this. And you're playing it as a job. And it was just a fun little real life moment between Tony and Jeremy.
Yeah.
My issue with this season is, and I alluded to this earlier, is once Kim leaves, I said the air got sucked out of the Idols when that thing happens. This is not the same, obviously, but the air does kind of get sucked out because at that point, there is nothing else that can happen. Jeremy's going to go next, and we are probably either Michelle's going to go or, somehow she gets to the end, in which case, unless she's sitting next to Ben and
Nick.
Denise or Nick, she's probably not going to win. So Natalie comes back, which I was fine with. I enjoyed her storyline this season. She killed it on the edge, all of that. But it just kind of dragged this time once Kim left. And I didn't feel that way with a lot of other seasons that I watched multiple times. So how do you feel about the end game of this season?
This game feels a lot to me like a Big Brother season, where the first 60% of it is so interesting, like you're locked in on everybody. And then, like in every Big Brother or most Big Brother seasons, you just know who the winner is early on. Like, so much of what's going on in the house that no matter what, that person is going to win or make it to 3 at the very worst. Or most often they set themselves up to win anyway. But the end game of every Big Brother season sucks. I mean, it really does. It's just so boring. And while this one wasn't boring because it's still Survivor and it's never really boring, it is to some extent just not. It's not a great watch, especially a rewatch. Like when you're watching it the first time, there is still an uncertainty or an unknown, and when you know what's going to happen, it's like, all right, well, here's 40 minutes to watch Denise go home or 40 minutes to watch Nick go home. And it's like, why even watch the 40 minutes? Like, you're not missing anything. Just skip to the next episode. Yeah. So I think that the end game for this season does lack, where the pre-merge really hits because of all the nostalgia and even the old school new school thing is sort of exciting there for a little bit. But yeah, you lose it because only one of three people when you get to Final Seven can win the game because everyone else isn't going to be able to because of who they're sitting next to or they have done nothing. So
yeah. And I want to cap it off with two things, or well, I guess three things. One, that final tribal council, it was fine. I enjoyed it for what it was. It wasn't it wasn't my favorite of the panel final tribals. I didn't feel like it dragged. It was just, you could tell that these people are all, at least mostly, going to vote for Tony. It's just kind of a ceremonial thing. Similar to like what we just said with the later half of the game, where it's like, all right, yeah, cool, let's just get this over with. I do feel like Michelle and Natalie fought really hard there. I do feel like they really backed up their games. They all had great stories to tell, but every story that Tony's telling, they're just zooming to the jury and they're all laughing at everything. And I was rolling my eyes this time, mainly because it just felt like, why are we even doing this? This is just a charade at this point.
Just a formality. Yeah.
Yeah. The Tony problem. I have it labeled in my notes. The Tony problem. The Tony problem is, it has nothing to do with actual Tony. This season came out when COVID was just started. Around May. So COVID had just started. But also the George Floyd thing had just happened, and I remember being online and everyone was rooting against Tony and Sarah, and I wasn't watching Winners at War at the time because at that time I was doing 40 and 40, and I was just going to watch the finale along with the entire season on the day the finale came out. But I remember being on Twitter and watching people complain about Tony, and I'm like, really? Like, is Tony doing something problematic this season? Then I watched the season, and it's like, nope, Tony's not even same old Tony. He's like pretty honest Tony for the first half, and then turned down Tony the second half. I feel like the reason that people have started to turn on this season, especially, is because of the optics of this Cops R Us alliance happening when all of this stuff is happening in the actual country. And I don't think that's fair to the winners, to Tony. I don't feel like it was set up for, obviously it was set up, but the way these people talk about it would seem like this was set up so that the cop wins while all this stuff's going on, when in reality they filmed it this summer before. I don't really, this is not really a discussion topic. It's just more of I feel like that's the biggest issue that a lot of people have with this season is they don't like Tony anymore. A lot of people love Tony forever, and then all of a sudden we can't like Tony anymore because he's a cop and he won when all of this shit was going down. And that's unfortunate, but it is what it is. I still like Tony. Tony's one of my favorite winners. I think he is the GOAT. And finally, 40 season retrospective. Your bookends might as well be the title of this episode.
Right.
At 40, after you were finished watching Winners at War the first time, or even as you are starting the season, did it feel special to you? Like, you don't understand what I'm asking? Like, was it like, this is it? Like, this is the greatest season? It's not, but this is the greatest season. This is 20 years of my life dedicated to this show, and it's all coming to a head here.
Yeah, I think some issues that I have with some other seasons is like the opening of the season is just like the Survivor China opening does like nothing for me. I just think like the stuff in the church and the stuff with Leslie does nothing. I think Winners at War has a great open. I think I remember sitting on my couch with like butterflies because I was just watching, everyone come up, they all get out, they all know who each other are. They have the toast, which again, on any other season would be stupid, but it's cool on this season. It's cool that they have the challenge right away. Like I said earlier, you mentioned the family visit. The family visit is great. We care about these people enough to know their fam. I mean, most super fans probably know of these people's families in a non-creepy way. So it's cool to see them on the island or on the edge. The speeches given by some of the older players after the final battle back, the way that the jury acts in just a general sense at Final Tribal is great. Maybe not towards individual people. I mean, like you said, they really are there to just ask questions and then go vote for Tony, basically regardless of what people say. So yeah, I think it's a great bookend. I think it's the greatest single game ever played by one player. I mean, he got no votes all season. He should have won 16-0 in my opinion. I would have been cool with some votes for Michelle. But I think it's by far the greatest game. I would put it in a tier above every other great game that we've seen. So I think in that case, being that he is the GOAT, being that he played, in my opinion, the best game, with the highest skilled cast, not the best cast, I don't think, but the cast with the highest skill. I mean, I think it is a great bookend. I think I would have been really sad if Survivor never came back, but I would have been okay with it here. Where even in Heroes vs. Villains, I wouldn't have been okay with.
Yeah, Heroes vs. Villains, if they had ended it there, no. Hey, no, I do feel like, and like I said at the beginning of the episode, my last 2 days of this, I like 41 and 42, especially 42, but it's going to feel like an epilogue because I just went through this. I'm not giving it my highest rating that I've given anything, but just that opening moment, it's just, and the song is super corny, but somehow it works. I'm giving it a 4.5 out of 5. So I have it right below Kagayan, Heroes vs. Villains, David vs. Goliath, Micronesia, and I think that's it. I think that when it hits, but it just kind of, like I said, it just kind of dies towards the end through no fault of the winner. It's just everyone else is just a lemming, or are Michelle and Jeremy, who can't find any path because Ben's a piece of shit. Ian, I know that you guys' mini just ended. Do you have anything happening in the near future with DCP?
For the first time ever, we actually don't. We don't have anything on the books, like planned and ready to go. There could be something really exciting in the works, but that's a huge maybe. We are giving, and by we, I mean her herself and the team, are giving McKenna a break. She deserves a break. That's not necessarily why we don't have anything planned, but it's needed whether she wants to.
McKenna deserves a break.
Yeah, she definitely deserves a break. No, we don't have anything planned. But when we surface a new project or a new season, we're gonna have more time to think and plan. So it's gonna be a good one for sure.
Well, everyone, please follow the DCP. It's one of the greatest games that I've ever played. They have 4 seasons out now, 4 or 5 seasons out on YouTube, minis and long games.
7 seasons. Yeah, 5 minis and 2 long games.
2 long games, yeah. They're all out on YouTube. It's a great watch. And you might see my face at one point or another. But Ian, thank you so much for coming on for Winners at War. I know it's really late, but everyone, I've got 2 days left. And like I keep saying, on Sunday, 9 a.m. or 8 a.m., I will be live streaming all of season 42 to end it hopefully around 6 p.m.-ish Sunday, so I can watch Sunday Night Football. Thank goodness. But we will see everyone after Survivor 41.